Welcome back to the Observe Day podcast, where we explore the stories behind our days and the meaning inside our celebrations. This month, we're celebrating National Read a New Book Month, and what better way to dive in than with someone whose entire life is a story of creation, connection, and community. My guest today is David Homan, composer, author, founder, and what many call a connection orchestrator. He's the CEO and founder of Orchestrated Connecting, chairs the Otto Miller Foundation, and his music has been heard across the globe. David's work centers on building relationship at the speed of trust and creating communities that truly matter. Today we'll talk about books, connection, and the art of orchestrating a meaningful life. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Since it's National Read a New Book Month, let's start with this. What's a book you recently read that changed your perspective?
So my childhood always starts with my dad got sick, and from getting sick, instead of going on our family vacation, my mom bought my brother and I a Nintendo. And from that Nintendo, we played video games our entire life. And my brother is now a video game writer. And
Yeah.
when I read the book, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is by that's okay.
Yeah.
So when I read the book Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, I fell in love with it, partly because my father studies and teaches Shakespeare, and it's a famous quote from Shakespeare. But more than that, it was this amazing book about love from its beginning, about video games, and this just beautiful story of people who created and used their imagination, and at the same time, their life was fraught with challenges and loyalties and all of this. And of all the books I've read in the last several years, this is the one that sticks with me, that changed the way I see creating video games. But
Oh,
more than that, just a very beautiful story about a love triangle.
yeah. Well, you're an author yourself. What inspired you to write your book, and how does it tie into your broader mission of building trust and community?
So my book is nonfiction. The book I recommended is one of my favorite fiction books of the last decade. But the book I wrote, which is called Orchestrating Connection, is based on a decade of bringing people together in a very different way, getting people to help each other without asking for themselves, and a playbook of why we need very intentional and purposeful community in a way that other people don't necessarily do to the extent to which I think we need it. So my
Yeah.
book is practical. It's this idea that if you don't want to be lonely, if you want to surround yourself with friends, family, you want to have more opportunities in life, you have to do two things. The first is really work on yourself, work at being more curious, more vulnerable, expressing and acting generously to others. And from that, you can then expect the people around you to be the same, and to realize, and this is sometimes the hard part of what I talked about, the people around you and how they influence your life is a choice. All of that is a choice, and therefore you can have a greater expectation of yourself and them.
Oh, thank you so much, David.
Of course. So, I wrote a book because everyone thinks they have something to say. The reason I wrote the book was I've been doing this as a practice for 10 years, connecting people of high integrity. The term is people I would leave my children with, and creating opportunities for people all around the world because of the power of the introduction and the
Yeah.
trust that comes from having built those relationships.
Yeah. Wow. Orchestrated connections. I know that part of that title is inspired with your background in the music.
Exactly. So the way I think of this, right? I play piano. I write classical music, and every time that I've written something bigger, specifically an orchestra or a symphony, which has only been twice in my career,
Yeah.
what happens is you think of yourself in your life the same way we're all the star of our own movie. We
Yeah.
are each a melody, and how other people hear you, how they experience you, you can only be your own. But when you have music, the people around you are what's called the harmony. They are the
Yeah.
chords, the people that resonate, the people that feel you, the people that give you rhythm, match your rhythm. And since I see all of life as musical, it was this idea, wisdom of what happens if the way you create that resonance with people, you can make bigger and bigger? Because every change that's happened on this planet has happened from a person, an idea, the people around them sharing that idea, those people then moving into a group, a community, a movement. And it all starts with being extremely clear on what that melody is. And that although everyone might hear it differently, they still hear it and want to add to it. And that's this concept of what orchestrating your life is, the way that you would
Yeah.
orchestrate a melody and a chord into something much bigger and greater.
Yeah. Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation. Yeah. How do you see books? Like, and this is one of the questions I've been meaning to ask. And since you're someone who um, specializes in community, and you've even written a book about connection, how do you see books as a tool for connection between ideas, people, and even across generations?
The same way that people interpret what you say, like what your podcast does with Observe Day, it's the same thing when you read and you read something that changes or colors your perspective. I might read a book differently than you, but if we both share that experience, it creates a commonality.
Yeah.
And there are lots of books that are great for passing the time, for spurring interest, but sometimes there are books that absolutely shake your core of how you see something. And from how you see something, like what it really means to um, you know, t- to then connect with other people around that. My brother went to school with a really amazing guy who wrote a memoir. Um, his name is Ishmael Bayham, and he wrote about being a boy soldier in Sierra Leone when he was a kid in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it's a beautifully written book. It's a memoir. It is absolutely horrific to read and to see what he grew up with, and why he became now a really incredible human rights activist. But when people read that book who had never, they had heard of somebody being a boy soldier, they had heard about it, but they'd never actually had the words resonate in a way that they realized that their world might be comfortable, but somebody else's world was completely destroyed. And just see how this guy built resilience from it. The right books can just give you a slightly different perspective than your own. And that makes you realize that perhaps you weren't right. Perhaps you've been telling yourself a story, a narrative about your life that makes sense for you to give yourself comfort while somebody else doesn't have comfort. And my book, the intention of it is to, launch ideally a larger movement around how people build community, why they do it. And when I go back to that comment I made about how you choose the people around you, I
Yeah.
will say, here's like the data of it. Like, it's your fault who you keep around you when you realize they're bad for you. If there are
Yeah.
three people who are overweight and obese and two people who are not, the statistics show that most likely those people who are not overweight will become overweight.
Yeah.
And everyone around you, yes, there's family, yes, there's people you work with, but how you choose to have purpose with them is a choice. And people make excuses all day as to why they don't have opportunities. And my point is,
Yeah.
people create those opportunities. Be more intentional, better yourself, and ask the same of the people around you, and you won't have those negative influences, or at least you won't have them as strongly.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. At the beginning of the episode, you described yourself as. Before I even ask this question, I've noticed there's one thing I've noticed, and I don't know if you've experienced it when you read a really good book, and more like the personality of the characters, especially if it's fiction, they rub off on you, and you step outside of your room and you stand at, and there's this feeling where you feel like the major character of the book you just read.
Oh yeah. I mean,
uh,
like with my kids, right? Like they go into a story and like they become that character.
Yeah.
And the older and older we get, we lose that sense of imagination, of stepping outside of it. We need story to pull us out of it. And when you
Yeah.
can be pulled out of it, what you're also then able to do is look back at what your own life is. And since, my stuff, my book is much more serious than some awesome fiction book that everyone should read. And I hope you have a lot of great authors with people recommending those. Like I
Yeah.
go back to, okay, like you read a great book, you listened to a podcast. What actions do you take? What's
Okay.
stopping you from taking an action to help somebody else, to thank somebody else? Like a lot of what we write about, my co-author, whose name is Noah Askin, and we have a whole chapter on gratitude and a whole chapter on generosity. And
Yeah.
people read it, right? And they read it and they think this makes sense. And then I say to them, think about somebody who helped you in your life that you've either never thanked or you want to thank. And people think about
Yeah.
it. And then I go call them right now. Take 30 seconds and say, thank you so much for introducing Barbara to me. I was able to get a new job for my friend because of her. Or to
Oh.
go to somebody and to say, you know what? I'm not sure what I'm doing Saturday. Do you need help with something? What can I do?
Yeah.
And those two small acts, which are two of our five founding principles, one, they're incredibly rewarding and it helps you feel good about yourself and other people feel valued, but it's also strategic because what happens if you call somebody up tomorrow and you decide to help them, and then a week later they tell somebody that, and then that person says, hey, I'm so glad you helped my friend so and so, what do you need? And you go, I'd love to meet this author. And they go, that's my
Yeah.
brother's best friend. And it's
Wow.
like there's a ripple effect. It is strategic, but if it is altruistic, is if it is about the greater good, you can't expect me to help you and you to help me. That's a transaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
That's a
when you
business.
when you have honor and you create respect through your actions, it's relational, and relation sits above transaction because transactions come and go, real relationships stay, and people don't understand the effort you should put into not just transacting with somebody, but instead building purpose with them, being vulnerable, being curious. None of these things, to be clear, are groundbreaking. But what would
Yeah.
happen if in the span of a week, you decided to, when you meet somebody, don't just talk about yourself, ask with real curiosity about them. And when they share something like their mom's been sick, share back what's happening with your family. And then from that, ask them what they need and then help them with something if you can. And ask for if by helping them, they could simply share back the gratitude of what happened from that. This is the system that I wrote about. It is putting together all the parts of what is networking advice, how to, make your life better, how to make more money, how to
Yeah.
be less lonely. And it's a system because I go back to this idea of the orchestra. Like most people probably listening haven't written, maybe not even, gone to hear a live symphony because
Yeah.
basically anyone who knows a classical composer is rare. In my profession, people celebrate you. They celebrate you after you die.
Yeah.
But this idea, right? Like if you take those principles of having a diverse network that's curious and vulnerable, where you offer to help people and then you honor what they do for you. If you do that repeatedly as a pattern in your life, you are then orchestrating your connections, your community, and your life. And all you had to do was have your melody be heard by others and hear theirs and add to it. And that's the concept that I wrote. We wrote this book around that. This is not something that only people born of wealth or fame or incredible good looks can do to get ahead. Anyone can build community and have their life matter more by helping everyone around them demonstrate that their lives matter more as well.
Yeah. There's something I love for us to quickly touch on. At the very beginning, we've been training around the word connection, orchestrator, all around, right? And you even describe yourself as a connection orchestrator. Can you break that down for us? What does that mean?
Sorry. So when you think about your life, you got to think about the fact that there are probably 4 or 5 times in your life where somebody could make an intro that will change your life.
Yeah.
You're 16, you want to be a mechanic, and somebody says, My uncle runs a shop down the street. Why don't you go meet him? And then from
Yeah.
thinking of it, you make an intro, and now you've had a job for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Or somebody says, um, my daughter's moving to another city, and somebody goes, "Oh, well, my friend lives there. Why don't they have her over for dinner?" And that
Yeah.
simple act isn't having them over for dinner. It's now a safe place for that daughter to go. But what happens is then the daughter makes a friend. That friend then meets the family that she's been welcomed into, and the person the daughter met by being welcomed into that home then
Yeah.
helps somebody in that family. So it's not transactional 1 degree, 1 degree. When you orchestrate it, it's this idea that you can get a lot of different parts of the people in your world supporting each other. So when I orchestrate a connection, I hear what somebody needs. I'll give you an example of one that
Okay.
if as it grows, I hope will change the world. So think about sports from where you live, right? Where a lot of
Yeah.
you listeners are, right? Um, Football, soccer is massive. What are the other sports that are massive near you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Football, soccer, yeah, that's massive. All other sports, that's massive. It's football. That's the only sport that I know that's like everybody, they show in national TV, and everybody's just rooting. The other ones, I'm aware of them, but I don't really see people talking about it and like, oh yeah, our country is representing us for this game. I'm like, not really.
Yeah, I mean it is the world sport, and as an American, I grew up playing it, which was everyone considers rare. But in other parts of the world, it's cricket. There's volleyball. There's
Yeah,
basketball, and
there's basketball.
yeah, and so when we think about it, we think about men playing.
Yeah,
Yet half the world's population is women.
yeah,
Women, especially just say with football, are some of the best athletes on the planet. The Women's World Cup gets incredible eyeballs. The Africa Cup, the Copa, all these things, like this is something that people go to and they celebrate all of these unbelievable women athletes who get paid less, who have less
yeah,
visibility. And so a very good friend of mine introduced me to this amazing guy whose name is Asser. Asser is Pakistani, focused in cricket, actually. And Asser fell in love with a woman who is a global figure, who is the human rights activist Malala.
yeah,
And they have a vision to build a fund that invests globally in women's sports, technology around that, and their
yeah,
their viewpoint is what would happen if we had equal visibility into women's sports like men, if women
yeah,
got paid equally like men, and
yeah,
then with that there was a better pathway for education, for opportunity for women globally, because sports is a way to build community, and it's also a way to celebrate each culture and their pride. And so I, as a advisor and friend, not working with them, I'm making connections for them to people I think are at their level that could help them with this fund and project. And so I'm orchestrating it by asking people I know who know very, very prominent people who own football teams, who are women wealth holders, who are known sports figures, to learn what Asser and his wife are doing, because I'm championing it. I believe in it. I believe in them. So at the highest level of orchestrating, you're asking people to trust you, to tell somebody they trust you don't know, take a phone call, read an email,
yeah.
look at a deck. And so that is what my world is. To orchestrate it right is to take great things that are separate and to put them together to make them greater.
Wow, it all makes sense now. Thank you for explaining with that example. Um, if listeners picked up your book this month, what's one key lesson you would want them to walk away with?
Although I have many, many key lessons in
Yeah,
this
I
book,
know.
right? No, no, no.
But
But
just
there,
just
but
give me one.
there's no, but there's the thing that matters, right? You say, like, do people pick up books and does it actually matter? Does it change their life? What sticks with them? If
Yeah,
somebody were to pick up my book and to read it, I would want them to understand that they are able to change the system of their life. I can't change how much money somebody has. I can't change how their business is doing. I can't change their family's health, but I can help people understand that you can truly build a stronger community. And by doing so, not only will you help yourself, but you'll change the world. And the book I wrote is a playbook. It is practical. There are questions you have to answer, exercises you have to do. And that gratitude exercise is what I always leave everyone with. And I mean this seriously. Like, think about somebody who helped you and spend 5 minutes and call them, leave them a message and say, thank you for doing this for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. It just, we don't live in a world, even though people might be gracious, where we take an extra step. And when you systematically do this, which is why I wrote this book, you have the choice to change who's around you, and that will change your life. It will set you on a path to more purpose, to more intention. And when you have that, suddenly it seems like 6 months later, 2 years later, there's a greater quality of what your life is. You get that opportunity that never came before. And more than this, because we live in a global world where we can be connected on a podcast through a service in a few
Yeah.
weeks and people can listen globally. And yet we might finish this and then feel alone. And
Yeah.
to not feel alone is to be intentional and purposeful and say, I really would love other people around me who see the world the way I see it. I'm going to find them, and I better do the work myself first.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, David. Where can listeners learn more about the work you're doing and also connect with you? And you also mentioned the book Orchestrated Connections.
Yeah. So we put everything on a website for the book. So it's orchestratingconnection.com. But if you Google my name, David Homan, and the word orchestrated or orchestrating, you will see everything I do, the community website, the book, um, my business. But everything I put into this, I made accessible. The two things I'll say is um, there are about 24 videos people can watch on the book page under media about connection and also about the people who are called takers, the ones that are negative in your life. There's a test people can take for free right now on the homepage of the book website, Orchestrating Connection, to give a better sense of how you connect in this world and the way
Yeah.
you see it. So we've tried to put all this out there as a resource so people understand this isn't about, how do I get to, one specific rich person or famous person, or how can I, who doesn't have relationships, do this when this guy talking on the other end of this podcast must have had relationships and born
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
something, like I was lucky, white man born in America with a college professor father, but the relationships I've built have all been organic by me
Yeah. Yeah.
spending 25 years doing this.
Yeah.
And what's distilled into the book is the way I did it, which people think of as renegade or rogue and not the way normally you should network, except for I built a network of trust that has crazy access to help people, and it's all there to consume and to connect around.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, David. I'll put the links in the description and the show notes. Thank you so much for talking about connection and for sharing that book tomorrow. I'll definitely check that out. Yeah. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Such a pleasure having me here, so
Yeah.
thank you.
That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.